Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 2 of What If Naruto was a immortal in Highschooldxd. If you guys enjoyed this what if, then comment, like and subscribe. Let's go. Also, the video goal is 10 likes. So, let me know that you're interested in the series and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So, let's go. Graphia Lucifuge walked toward the kitchen to prepare for the upcoming event that would take place at Rimori residence tomorrow night. Tomorrow night would be the wedding between two high-class devils and the unification of two great families. The wedding of Rias Rimori and Riser Phoenix. 10 days had passed since the day Razor came into Rias' clubroom and challenged her in a rating game, the game that Rias knew she would lost before the match even began. It was clear to Graphia that Rias' attempt was out of desperation, hoping a miracle that would happen to her in her peerage. While each and every single members of Rias' peerage were very talented and held great potential, it was still a match between 16 and 5. Not only Razor had the advantage of number, he also was well prepared and experienced. Rias losing was understandable and no one could blame her. She had been busy all day, since yesterday, when Graphia herself declared the defeat of Rias Rimori. As a servant of Mal Lucifer, who had been assigned to make the preparation for the wedding with nothing but perfection, Graphia took pleasure and responsibility in doing her job, knowing full well how important this wedding would be. But her mind thought about Naruto, wondering what would he say if he found out Rias was getting married. Of course the blonde wouldn't be pleased at all. In fact, if he was still the person he used to be, Naruto would most likely stomp into Phoenix residence and force them to cancel the engagement between two families. However, Graphia knew full well he would do just that if he found out the way to get into the underworld. Shayna had been very distracted recently, and it wasn't just because her adorable sister getting married but also that day was coming near. Tomorrow, exactly 10 years ago, was the day Shayna thought she had lost everything. The day Naruto had given his life to save Milika's. Graphia still remembered how Shayna fell apart at his funeral, which had been organized secretly. 2 months later, the Mal Lucifer still barely kept herself together. She didn't eat, nor sleep, nor go out of her room. Sometimes, Graphia even found the crimson-haired woman lost unconscious on her bed. Shayna abandoned the duty as a Mao. She abandoned her duty as a mother. Only when Rias, holding Milika's in her arms, came into her room and asked her out to play with them, looking as innocent as children always, was Shayna had begun to return to her old self and get over her loss. Thanks to two of the most important ones in her life, the underworld had gotten their leader back. But unlike everyone, Graphia knew full well that Shayna had never gotten over Naruto's death. She just pretended to be happy for the sake of her son, her little sister and all her closest ones, yet deep down inside she was a broken woman. Shayna loved Naruto too much to be able to forget him. When Rias came to Shayna's office and told them about a young man named Naruto, hope had appeared in Graphia but not Shayna, who stubbornly refused the possible idea of maybe, just maybe, Naruto was still alive. Graphia hadn't been there for them that day 10 years ago, but this time, for once, she would bring them back together. Suddenly, the sound of her personal phone snapped the silver-haired maid out of her train of thoughts. Curiously, Graphia excused herself to somewhere more private and summoned her cell phone out from her dimensional pocket. Graphia turned on the device and felt her heart skipped when she saw the numbers. Naruto-sama. Ah, no need for such honorable suffix, Graphia. Naruto's playful voice was heard from the other side of the line. How are you? I'm fine, thank you, Naruto-sama. She said quickly and couldn't help herself to smile a little. So, how things going with you? Naruto asked. How come you haven't come to my store yet? I'm so sorry, Naruto-sama, Graphia said with embarrassment in her voice. With all the preparation for the match between Rias and Razor and now for the upcoming wedding, Graphia had become very busy lately and couldn't find herself thinking anything other than her work. Relax, Graphia, I just kidding. Naruto chuckled. Speaking of which, care to tell me why Rias wasn't at school this morning? This rating game was yesterday, right? Graphia frowned. Would she be able to tell Naruto what happened to Rias? From the looks of it, she could already tell that the blonde wasn't like Razor Phoenix one bit. Would he let Rias be with someone that she didn't love and love her back? Even without his memories, Naruto had shown signs of being very protective of the next heir of Rimori clan. Did she lose? His voice was calm, fair and square. Naruto-sama. Grafia didn't know what to do, for once she was at loss for words. Tell me everything. Naruto Uzumaki sat down on a table near the window and turned his eyes to look at the petite form of his foster sister, who was rushing back and forth enjoying herself in her new work alongside the waitresses of Uzumaki Ramen, serving the costumers the best ramen in the world that they couldn't find anywhere. Asia had always been their favorite since the day Naruto opened his store. Her innocent and cheerful nature, along with the usual happy smile, easily melted the hearts of anyone. However, his work wasn't the only thing that was on his mind right now. The most troublesome matter Naruto was trying to solve was Rias Grimoire and her upcoming wedding. Naruto knew that he shouldn't stick his nose into other people, or devil's business in this case, and that was how he had lived all these years since he left Konoha. Stay out of the trouble. But at the same time, it wouldn't be Naruto Uzumaki to leave something like that happen to one of his friends, especially Rias. For some reason, he felt the need to help her just as much, if not evener, than when he wanted to save Asia. When the blonde began to think back about what Grafia had told him, he caught sight of a familiar girl wearing a pink dress with strange decoration like phoenix's tails on the small point of her back. Her drills-like blonde hair stood out very much among the crowd, which she was getting very uncomfortable with the stare she was receiving. Her blue eyes then met Naruto's azure one, and the eternal shinobi finally saw the visiting card he had given her nearly a week ago in Rias' clubroom. What can I say? Naruto muttered to himself when he saw her walking as fast as she could to his store's direction. My first inhuman costumer is an Ojo-sama. Just from the look of it he could already tell she was a rich princess who was spoiled most of her life. Well, hello, Naruto Uzumaki. The girl pointed her finger at him after she had busted into the store, her other hand on her hip as she cut off his greeting. How dare you make a girl like me wait for 3 hours and didn't come out to greet me like a low-class being you are. A tick mark appeared on his forehead as Naruto listened to her frustrated insults. He would have to give her credit though, she had chosen the right word to call him so that she wouldn't reveal herself as non-human being. However, she was drawing a lot of stares from everyone, so Naruto stood up and walked toward her. First thing, lady, we don't have a special greeting service, especially for someone like you, and I don't remember I had told you to wait for me. He walked to her left side before shooting his hand out and grabbed the collar of her pink dress and lifted her off the ground, making the blonde cried out in surprise. Second, keep your damn voice down, you're disturbing others. How dare you talk to me that way, put me down this instant. Revel shouted out while waving her arms wildly in the air. Naruto just sighed and walked to his table, placing her down to sit in front of him. Thank you, she said gratefully while sighing in relief. Asia, come here please. Naruto called out to his foster sister after sitting down. Yes, Oni-sama. Asia came to their table while looking at the other blonde nervously. By now everyone had returned to their own meal. Give this girl the menu, I think she is very hungry. Waiting for him for 3 hours. Did she had that much patience? And how in this bloody world did she think that he would be there to get her when she arrived? Hi Oni-sama, Asia said and handed Revel the menu she was holding. Here you go, miss. At least your sister has some manners. The girl huffed and looked at the menu, then her face turned into a frown, then confusion. I will take, she muttered. 1 miso ramen for her, Asia. Naruto quickly said, earning a nod from the former nun who quickly drifted off to take the girl's order. Thank you. It's just I never ate this ramen before, so. The blonde said while playing with her dress, looking extremely uncomfortable. Don't worry, you're not the only one who didn't know about it, let alone eat it. Naruto smiled at her. It was the truth, he had met a lot of them, people like her on his journey, mainly extremely rich people who happened to eat luxurious foods every day. So, what's your name? My name is Revel Phoenix. I'm Razor Phoenix's sister. She paused before continuing, the one you, crashed your forehead into. It's called Butthead, by the way, Naruto said. This girl was Razor Phoenix's sister. At least she didn't have that arrogant attitude around her. Revel just used to the way she had been treated since the day she was born. So what are you doing here at my humbling ramen store, Revel-sama? Naruto asked with a slight mocking tone, making the daughter of Phoenix clan puff her cheeks in annoyance. I want to know who you are. Well, sorry, but I don't plan to find a girlfriend right now, maybe with someone more mature. Tilda. You're annoying. Revel pouted before looking around, like she was trying to make sure no one was eavesdropping them before turning her head back to him. I want to know if you're really human or not. That statement made Naruto's blood turn cold but managed to keep a straight face. Here you go. Asia sudden appeared before them and gently sat the steaming bowl of miso ramen down on table. I hope you have a great meal. She bowed before quickly ran to other customers. So, how should I eat this? Revel asked while holding the chopsticks in her hand, a spoon in other, looking uncomfortable. Just eat all you want. Naruto informed the younger blonde, making Revel nodded her head. And I don't know what you are talking about, by the way. Don't try to act stupid. I found your name in a very old comic book for children in my old library. Screw it, Naruto now was looking at her with wide eyes. In a book. In the normal situation this was as cool as hell, your name. The way you look, even the way you love ramen is in said book. Revel pointed out. I tried to ask others, even came to the bookstore, but found out that for some reason they had stopped publishing this book 10 years ago. This girl, she is sharp, Naruto thought to himself as he looked at Revel in amazement. Information gathering was one of the most important things that would help you survive. It was one of many things Shikamaru had taught him long ago. In Revel, Naruto had seen the confusion on her face when Rias said his name in that clubroom. There was a chance that she already recognized his name there and went to look for him in anything he could find. First Graphia, now her. Who's next? This is so delicious. Revel's purse pulled Naruto out of his thought. The daughter of Phoenix clan was eating the ramen with glee in her eyes. Anyway, maybe it was someone that has the same name as I have, and who know, maybe he also loves ramen like me. The blonde deflected casually. Or tried to. No, I'm sure it was you. Revel said deadpan stubbornly. Sorry to bust the bubble, but I got work to do. Naruto informed her before standing up and made to leave when. Please, you have to save Rias-sama. Naruto stopped dead in his tracks and sat down to look at the drill-haired girl before he even knew it. Why? Naruto asked. She lost, and Rias has to keep her promise to your brother. It's their deal. He already knows. How? Revel's eyes widened. She put the chopsticks and spoon to the table before saying. But she is not happy. Naruto stayed silent and waited for her to continue. Rias-sama hasn't come out of her room since yesterday. She didn't eat anything or wanted to meet anyone. Revel said sadly. My brother won the match, but it was because he had prepared beforehand and had more experience. It wasn't fair for her. Everything is fair in a battle, Revel. She lost because she didn't prepare for the match, gathering every information she needed to win. Naruto said dispassionately. But, it was a match of 15-4. How is that fair? Revel stood up and reached into her pocket before pulling out big stash of money and slammed it on the table. Thank you for the meal, I never seen someone as heartless as you. And stomped out of the store, the same way she came in. Naruto just sighed, ignoring the stares others were giving him. Naruto paid no heed to those eyes, though his mind was crowded with thoughts and possible decisions. What to do? Reaching into his pocket, Naruto pulled out his phone and looked for the numbers he needed. A day later, two figures, clad in black cloaks, walked through the crowded street of Lilith. From the curves of their body everyone could tell that they were females, however the citizens Lilith paid no mind to the two as they continued to work their job. The two women walked into the park and came to the wildest area of it. There were no trees or any benches around. One of them suddenly raised their hands up and muttered some unknown words. Two magical circles appeared above her as a large, translucent, crimson barrier appeared above their head and slowly spread out towards the ground. When the barrier touched the ground, it finally engulfed both of them and disappeared. Everything set Shana-sama. Thank you, Graphia. The woman pulled the hood of her cloak down, revealing herself to be Shana Lucifer. Followed her king's lead, Graphia pulled down her hood and made her cloak disappear. When another magic circle appeared, a bunch of flowers filled with crimson roses slowly materializing in the silver-haired maid's hands. We should hurry, Shana-sama, the wedding will begin soon. I know, Graphia, this will only take a minute. Nodding at her personal maids. Words, the crimson mouth turned around and stretched out both of her hands. An enormous crimson magic circle with the insignia of Grimoire household appeared, spreading through the ground of entire area. Before the two women appeared a medium-sized stone grave with the symbol of Grimoire clan carved on the top. Here lies Naruto Uzumaki, a great friend, great teacher, great brother, great father. A loving husband. There were no years. Tears fell from Shayna's eyes as she furiously wiped them away. It's been 10 years since that day, and not a single day had gone by when she hadn't tried to come here if not for Grafia reminded her of the duty as Mao. 10 years had passed since the day Naruto given his life to save their newborn child, who had been taken from her by the man she called brother. She was too weak to do anything back then, so their child's fate had been put onto his shoulder as he pushed through enemy lines with ease and reached her brother. When she had gathered enough strength to walk there by herself, Shayna was greeted with the sight of her loving husband, holding Milikas protectively in his arms while Sirzex fell to the ground with a kunai impaled deeply into his heart. Tear of joy, tear of happiness fell from her eyes that day, but it soon turned into tear of horror when she saw the terrified look on her Peerage's face, who just arrived after taking care of the large group of stray devils attacking the city. Naruto fell to the ground, by a bullet that has gone all the way through his head. Aside from herself and Grafia, Rias had been the one who had been affected the most by his sudden departure. She was too young to handle the death of her favorite person back then. Shayna remembered her sister crying for days, screaming her husband's name until her throat was nearly ripped apart. For Rias' sake, they had to erase her memories and then later erased his existence. The adults were forbidden to tell their child about him. His name had been erased from all the history books, even Grafia's romantic story with him had been changed as well. It was a painful decision for Shayna and the other Mao, especially Shayna herself. Naruto should be remembered as a hero, not be totally forgotten sans the adult like this. But she had no other choice. Rias was her beloved sister and Shayna loved her just as much as Naruto. If not because of Rias' old self returned to her, Shayna wouldn't be able to recover from such thing. A day after their parents erased her memories, Rias was the one who came to her room with a 2-month-old Milikas in arms, asking her to go out and play with them. Shayna took the bunch of flower from Grafia's hand and gently laid it down in front of Naruto's grave. "Hey Naruto-kun," Shayna said gently with a small smile, "Milikas is 10-year-old now, we just celebrated his birthday this morning. He was so happy when all his friends came to play with him. Oh, and Rias is going to get married this night, isn't it great? The same girl who chasing after you and said she will steal you away from me when she grow up." Shayna said with a small chuckle before her face turned into a frown. "We want her to be happy, but she looked so sad when I went to see her. Did we do the right thing, Naruto-kun? You had taught me to always follow my heart, but I can't favor a single devil over the other even if she was my own sister." A sad expression appeared on her face, unshed tears welling in her beautiful eyes. "What should I do now, Naruto-kun? Shayna-sama, it's time." Shayna's head jerked up as the voice of her queen. "Just give me a second, Grafia," Shayna growled forcefully before turning her head back to Naruto's grave. "I just hope that someone will come and save her. If you're listening to me now, please. Let it be the right one. Shayna-sama." "I know, Grafia, I had to go now, Naruto-kun." Whispering the last word in sadness, the Crimson Mao turned around. "I love you," and walked off while wiping her tears. Grafia just turned back to the Naruto's grave, wanted nothing more than blow it apart. But now wasn't the time for that. Tonight, at the wedding, the underworld, no, everything would change. "Yuto-kun, where is Issei-kun?" Akino Himehime asked while looking around. Dressed into an elegant kimono, the Queen of Rias was drawing a lot of attention from the male population around her. "I thought he was coming with you." "He's still recovering, Akino-san," Kiba said with a forced smile, remembering how Issei had reacted when he came to his house to help. "But he will come soon, I left a special teleporting spell to him just in case." He was dressing in a black tuxedo that fit him well. Like Akino, he was also receiving a lot of attention from others, but mostly females thanks to his charming smile. "Why do I have feeling he might do something stupid?" the Queen of Rias asked herself. Time. Kaniko's short statement made all three members of Rias Peerage turn their head to look at the main area of the head of Grimoire's hall, where a familiar column of flame appeared and the symbol of Grimoire clan. Razor Phoenix appeared out of the flame with a smug grin on his face. This is such a wonderful day, it's not just the day of my wonderful wedding but also the unity of two powerful families. Everyone, let me present you my queen Rias Grimoire, he said and outstretched his arm and a crimson magic circle appeared beside him. Rias Grimoire appeared out of the circle in her white wedding dress, looking extremely stunning and beautiful that soon captured the heart of many males in the room. But her eyes were closed, and her head lowered in defeat. Just then, the door of the hall busted open and a certain pervert stepped into the room before screaming with all his might. Buchu yu yu. Issei Hyodo's scream made the devils in the room turn their heads to look at him with wide eyes before everybody burst into shocked chatter. Rias also looking at Issei with wide eyes, she didn't expect him to come here shouting like that. To all the high-class devils here. And Bushu's sister, Mao-sama. My name is Hyodo Issei from Kuo Academy. I have arrived to take back Bushu, Rias Grimoire-sama. The hall becomes even noisier at his speech. Without any care about them, Issei walked towards Rias and Razor with hateful glare to the youngest son of Phoenix clan. Hey, you. Do you know where this? A guard came to stop him but before he could do anything, three shadows suddenly appeared before him. Ice-kun. Leave this to us. You were late. Era, so you finally showed up. Kiba, Kaneko and Akano. All of them were stopping those who were trying to get in Issei's way. Thank you. Issei thanked them quietly and went towards Razor confidently. When Pawn of Rias Grimoire faced him up front, he said it straight at Razor without shame. Bushu, Rias Grimoire-sama's virginity belongs to me. Quote ellipsis exclamation mark quote. Razor makes a face that you couldn't explain with words. What's the meaning of this, Razor? Hey, Lady Rias. What's the meaning of this? Relatives and authorized people were making unsettled faces and they were panicking. No one could blame them though. It's an event that I organized. A soft and feminine voice made everyone turn their head to the door. Issei felt his heart stopped when he seen the woman that was walking in the hall with Grafia followed behind. She looked like a much more mature and if it even possible, more beautiful than Rias herself. The elegant black dress she was wearing made her charms stood out even more, easily making her the most beautiful woman that was present. Shayna Lucifer and her queen, Grafia Lucifuge had arrived. Nay-sama. Rias said making Issei's jaw dropped. I wanted to see the power of the dragon, so I asked Grafia. Shayna said casually in a calm voice. Shayna-sama. You can't do something irresponsible like this. A middle-aged looking devil panicked. It should be fine. The rating game from last time was very entertaining. But it was a bit disadvantage for my little sister who had no game experience to face off against Razor-kun who is a prodigy from the House of Phoenix. Shayna-sama, you are saying that the last game wasn't fair. No, not at all. If a mouse such as me says such thing, then I would be making the old nobles look bad. The connection between the high-class devils is important after all. Shayna said it with a smile, ignoring all the stares she was receiving. Then, Shayna, what do you want to do about it? A man stepped out with crimson hair asked. Shayna smiled. In truth this was an event that had suddenly appeared and she wasn't planned anything about it, but if she played her card right, she might be able to hello her sister. Father. I want to make my cute little sister's engagement party into a flashy one. Dragon vs Phoenix. Don't you think it's the ultimate event? To stir up the party by having a battle between legendary creatures. There aren't any entertainments which can surpass this. Everyone in the hall became silent with Shayna's confession, which then turned her eyes to look at Issei. Dragon user Kun, you have our permission. Razor, can you show your power once more right in front of Rias and I? Hearing the most powerful devil's wish, Razor made a fearless smile. Very well. There is no way I can decline if Shayna-sama asks me. This Razor will show his last performance before getting married. Shayna nodded before turning her head to Issei. Dragon user Kun, what prize do you want when you win the match? Shayna-sama. What are you saying? He's a devil, so we need to give him something fitting for it since we are asking him to do something for us. The mouse smiled and waved her hand carefreely. Now then. I can give you anything. A peerage. Or the most beautiful woman. Issei seemed consider each option for a moment before saying. I ask you to give me Rias Grimoire-sama back. Shayna then made a very happy face when Issei answered her without any pause. Very well. If you win, you may. But once again the door to the hall was forced open. This time, a guard came in and it seemed he was in a hurry. What happened now? A young man with athletic build muttered to himself, looking at the guard who was trying to catch his breath with interest eyes. Mao-sama, there is a human out there, the guard said quickly, making the hall gasp in shock. Rias, eyes widened slightly while a smile appeared on Graphia's face. He is coming to this place and pushing through us like we're nothing. He also said he came here to help Rias-sama keep her promise. Wait, what promise? Rias asked in a hopeful tone, if the person appeared to be whom she thought they were then. Before anyone could make any more noise, the form of a soldier flew past in the door with extreme speed, made them all widen their eyes in shock. Another, then another soldier. They all could hear the fighting sound now. And then, there were silence. All the noise stopped save for the footstep of an unknown person. Grr, who's there? Show yourself. Razor asked impatiently and flared out his flame. Rias' nose then caught the familiar scent of Uzumaki ramen. She used her hands to cover her mouth, hiding the happiness in her smile as tears formed in her eyes. Ravel, who was standing with the rest of Razor's peerage, let out a relief sigh without knowing. He does care, Ravel thought to herself, I was wrong. Ramen delivery here. 4. Rias Grimori. A young man stepped into the room with a large wooden box in his hands. He was wearing casual clothes with baggy jeans and orange t-shirt with a cap hiding his face, but anyone could see the grin forming on it. The boy looked at the paper in his other hand before throwing it behind him casually. Shayna's heart turned cold when she recognized him. NNN. She wanted to speak out his name. Her face was filled with horror as the event of 10 years ago flashed through her mind. She tried to move forward, but her legs were too weak and failed her. If not for Graphia, who quickly caught Shayna in her arms, she would be on the ground right now. You're that lowly who? Oi, shut up, Razor. The young man called out while walking through the crowd of devils. I came here to deliver the ramen, not talk with you, and he stopped in front of Rias. Naruto-kun, Rias said, making all the older devils in the room gasp in pure shock, but the Crimson Heiress was too happy to pay her mind to them. Next time you make a promise to me, make sure you can keep it, because after all, Naruto took the cap of his head and gave Rias his grin. It's not every day you get Naruto Uzumaki to deliver you free ramen. What? Nearly every adult single devils in the room screamed out in shock. Naruto, Rias and the other young devils looked around in curiosity, no more than Naruto himself, but they were greeted with the shock expression on their father, mother, uncle, brother's face. All of them were also directly looking towards Naruto. It's impossible. A man shouted out. You can't possibly be Naruto Uzumaki-sama. Well, for your information, nothing is impossible to me. Naruto smirked confidently before saying with a normal voice, and last time I checked, I'm the only Uzumaki around here, with the name of Fishcake in it. Naruto grinned smugly, proud of his own joke. But then the hall exploded in chaos, with everyone screaming and shouting at him, calling him a liar and anything akin to that. The blonde just sighed. Ravel had said his name was in a comic book, but he didn't know that he was this famous among them. But what confused him the most was that he didn't know anything about it. Silence. He saw the man with crimson hair like Rias, standing near a young woman with the face oddly resembled Rias, shouted with authority before looking at Naruto. His eyes softened. Naruto-sama, is that really you? Yeah. Naruto nodded his head. But how? He whispered. While Naruto was looking around him in confusion, Graphia had guided Shayna to a chair and helped her sat down. Handing her queen a glass of water, the silver-haired maid had already predicted her king would be reacted this way when she saw Naruto. Graphia, how is this possible? Shayna muttered to the one who used to be her rival. How can he survive after that? I saw him die, held him in my arms. She sobbed. Shayna-sama, it's really him. Please listen to me, Graphia said, with a very different tone than her usual. From the day Rias came to your office and told us about a young man named Naruto, I had tried everything to get in contact with him. Graphia lowered her voice so that only Shayna would hear her and decided to leave out what happened after they got to know each other at that bar. At first I thought this was some kind of sick joke, but I had confirmed that it was him. Then I have to meet him this instant. Shayna was about to stand up, but Graphia had pulled her back down to the chair. He lost his memories, Shayna-sama. Graphia shook her head sadly. I don't think he will remember you, or any one of us. I guess it has something to do with being shot in the head and having his brain destroyed. What should we do now, Graphia? I don't want to lose him again. Shayna began to get panic, she couldn't think anything. Her heart was filled with the need to be with him. We should take it easy for him, Shayna-sama. Naruto-sama is here to save Rias-sama. We should let him do it first before doing anything else. Shayna nodded her head and wiped the tears at the corner of her eyes. With him saving Rias-sama, this will be our first move to bring back his existence to the world. I will trust you this time, Graphia. Shayna hugged her queen. And thank you, for bringing him back. As Graphia began to cast a secret communication spell so that she could tell all the older devils what to do, Shayna made her way toward the love of her life with her heart poundingly against her chest. Meanwhile, Naruto was looking at Razor with amusement while the son of Phoenix clan was looking at the other blonde in disgust. Issei was casting his eyes between them uneasily while Rias was standing directly behind Naruto. Shayna-sama. Razor then saw the Mao approaching them. Please send this filthy human back to the human world so that we could begin the match. When he turned around and looked at the one who was behind him, Naruto was greeted with the most beautiful face he had ever seen in his life, which was greatly resembled Rias but more mature. Long flowing crimson-haired, big innocent blue-green eyes, a face that could steal anyone's heart. Her elegant and expensive-looking dress hugging every curve of her body, showing off her large breast while letting her back bare. Naruto's heart skipped a bit when he looked at her. She looked oddly familiar. Rias saw the look in Naruto's eyes and felt a little jealous. She then elbowed him on his back to bring Naruto back to the real world. Ouch, what's that for? Naruto whispered. Nothing. Rias answered her back innocently. Unfortunately, Razor-kun, I can't do that, Shayna said with a smile, acting as normally as she could and was doing a very good job at that. What? Why? I think like Dragon User-kun here, someone also want to speak out his opinion. Shayna turned her head to look at Naruto. But first, Naruto-kun, can you tell me the other reason why you come here? Well, it's true that Rias-chan said she would come to my ramen store to have a free ramen to celebrate her victory. Naruto smiled to the girl. But unfortunately she lost, didn't she? So I had to come here and bring her the ramen she always eat whenever she come to Uzumaki Ramen. Then why are you still here? Razor asked with an impatient tone. If you had finished your job then you should go back to where you belong to. You know what, Razor, you should just shut up and think before speaking your opinion. Naruto glared at him. Point is, it's not every day I give out free ramen like this and Rias did promise me to eat them if things go the way she wanted. A promise is a promise and I'm here to help her make it happen. Then his face turned cold, Naruto directing his killing intent toward Razor and gave the taller blonde his murderous glare. I'm here to make things the way Rias wants. Shayna nodded her head with a smile while Razor gulped. There's something about this young man that was worried him. Around then small whispers could be heard everywhere as the devils discussed about the matter before them. Hey wait, Naruto-senpai. Issei suddenly called out and pulled Naruto's shoulder forcefully. I came here first and already had Mao-sama permission to fight Razor for the sake of Bushu. Plus you're just human, there's no way you will be able to beat him, so let me do this, he said. That's right, Naruto-kun, I did promise Dragon User-kun. She put a finger on her lip and tilted her head to the side cutely, making Razor blush while Issei nearly had a nosebleed. Ah, what to do, I'm also want to see Naruto fight. She winced, in very much the same way as her childhood friend, who right now was the Leviathan. I'm so sorry to disturb Lucifer-sama. A young man stepped out from the crowd and asked with a respectful tone. But isn't he just a human? Letting him fight like that could be dangerous. Well, Saraorg-kun, thing is, Naruto-kun here has the same name as Naruto Uzumaki, the hero of our devil in the Great War who had killed Lucifer and ended his era, ending the long time war between the three fractions. A number of gasps could be heard. Even Naruto had to raise an eyebrow at this. He is also my teacher and my godfather. But how? How come we don't know anything about this man? Surely his name should be everywhere now. Sona Citri asked with calmness, but like everyone she was also very surprised. Of course you didn't, we erased his existence. Silence. We will announce the truth later, but right now let's get back to the matter at hand. Shayna turned her head back to the three before gesturing Rias to her side, which the young woman obeyed without question. So, a young man with the same name as our hero, can you prove it to us that you're a real one? Or are you just a sick joke? She asked and then turned to the other two. A dragon user who held a great power inside of him, and the genius son of Phoenix clan with the fire of Phoenix. Hero, dragon, Phoenix, who will be the one can take the princess? Shayna said dramatically. Lucifer-sama, how about we make it a three-ways fight? A young devil raised his arm. Interesting idea. She clicked her fingers and exclaimed with excitement. The three of you will fight each other and last man standing will be the winner, how is that sound? She asked. Hee, another trash won't change anything, he is just a human faking the hero's name, what could he possibly do? Razor smirked. I will kick your butt Razor, you too Naruto-senpai, for all the humiliations you put me through at school. Your lustful eyes were always on my sister. Naruto smashed Issei's head. Pranking you for the rest of your life would be the least of things I would do. Sister. Since when? Shayna thought before saying. Great, then Naruto-kun, I had asked Dragon User-kun this so it would be only fair to ask you the same thing. What do you want if you won the match? Money. Peerage. The most beautiful woman or have me turn you into a devil? I am already rich enough thank you and what the hell is peerage? Turn into devil, I love to be human by the way. And the most beautiful woman. Sound good but I would like to be single at the moment. Shayna's smile dropped immediately. However I would like you let Rias do whatever she wants to do, no forcing. Great, then let's start shall we? A crimson magic circle appeared and stepped out from the seal was a group of men and one creature which resembled a Chinese dragon. They were the Est peerage in the underworld, Shayna Lucifer's peerage. Whoa. Beowulf mumbled in awe when he looked down to Grimoire Residence's massive garden-turned-stadium for the three contenders. So, Aniki really came back. As expected. McGregor Matthew nodded his head. From the man that beat the hell out of us just because he felt like it. He is just like a Phoenix, his regeneration is unbelievable. Surf second muttered to himself. Shayna-sama, are you okay? The dragon-like creature asked his master worriedly. I'm fine Enku-san. Shayna nodded quickly. Nay-sama, if Naruto-kun is very close to our family then how come I don't remember anything about him? Rias, who was standing with the rest of her peerage, wondered out loud. She had tried for months to look for him from all information sources she had, however not matter what she couldn't find anything about him and understood why now. But she couldn't believe that the answer always in her head, all this time. We didn't not only erase his existence from the books Rias-chan. Shayna shook her head sadly, making Rias' eyes widened in shock when she realized the meaning of her sister's words. Why you erased my memories didn't you? How could you Nay-sama? Rias snapped and her sister turned her head away. That accident 10 years ago, when I lost my memories because of the stray devil that attacked us, was a lie. We had no choice Rias-chan, please understand this but Naruto-kun is someone very important to our family, not just the hero of the Great War. She's right Rias. Venelana Grimoire, Rias and Shayna's mother said as she followed her husband to the place they would watch the match with her two daughters. Naruto Dono took a very important role in both of your lives. You and Shayna had been affected the most. We were afraid something would happen to you, you were too young back then to handle. Handle what? Rias asked confused. We will tell you later daughter. Lord Grimoire said, the match is about to start. And everyone then focused their attention toward the soon-to-be battleground. Down below Naruto was scanning his two opponents closely. He knew absolutely nothing about their power other than Razor could use fire and super healing factor like Phoenix. Shayna said Issei was some kind of dragon user so the boy might have the power of dragon. Nonetheless Naruto was pretty sure he could win this fight if he careful enough, but toying with them would be a good idea. The devils in the hall were standing around the watching stand, watching with keen eyes. On other hand at the house of Phoenix side, their relatives, their servants, and Razor's sister, Revel were sitting there. Issei then summoned a boosted gear on his left arm while Razor just looked around confidently. Please start. The devil male who was in charge of the battle gave a call for the start of the match. Razor who has his fire wings out points at Issei's gauntlet, completely ignored Naruto. All of your ability is already cracked. A sacred gear that keeps on doubling the power of the user, the boosted gear. Also it seems like you gained a new ability that can transfer the multiplied power into an object or your allies. So what, I will beat you in 10 seconds. Hello, I'm still here, you know, Naruto called out to them. You two should worry about me more than each other, who know you two should be able to beat me if you guys join hands. He shrugged his shoulder before reaching into his pocket. They all thought he was going to pull out a weapon, but the clicking sound of the bell immediately alerted every members of Shayna's peerage, even the king and queen themselves. Oh no, Beowulf muttered. He's going to. McGregor exclaimed with horror. Use that method. Surtur II finished while shivering. The devils looked toward Naruto in confusion, wondering what could make the devils in the underworld shiver in fear like that. They all widened their eyes when Naruto pulled out a bell by its string from his pocket. A bell? You must be joking. Razor roared out in laughter. Nay-sama, what is that bell? Is it some kind of magical bell? Rias asked hopefully. No, it's a normal bell. Shayna shook her head, but you're about to witness the first test in Naruto's many hell training methods. Shayna shivered slightly when she remembered everything Naruto pushed her through to make her as she was now. The bell test. Naruto enhanced hearing helped him to hear everything around the stadium and of course knew what Shayna was saying. This was going to be a lot of trouble afterward. This woman and her friends seemed to know everything about him while he knew absolutely nothing about them. Anyway, he should continue. Asia was staying alone at their house on the human world. Though he had left a clone there to protect her, it wouldn't be good to leave her alone for too long. This is a bell, Naruto said, the oblivious. I was planning to use it only on Razor, but with Issei here it would be a lot easier. You see, I will put the bell right here. The blonde hooked the string to his belt. If one of you can take the bell from me, I will give up this fight immediately. The crowd gasped in surprise at his challenge. Why should I? Razor shouted, smirking arrogantly while flaring out his infernal wings. Why should I try to take that bell from you when I can burn both you and the bell with my flame? Simple, you two stood absolutely no chance against someone as awesome as I am in a real fight, Datbeo. Naruto declared while smirking confidently, easily matching Razor's smirk. It would be easier for you guy to take me out like this. Hey, look at me, I have no weapon while you have the ultimate hand of power and you have the eternal flame of youth. Naruto scratched his chin while looking at Issei, then Razor. And anyone one of you manage to take the bell from me, I will also give you a reward. The blonde then reached into his pocket once again and then pulled out the second item he had prepared for this fight, though he didn't plan to give it away like if they managed to win like that. Everyone held their breath before having their jaw drop to the ground in shock. What Naruto pulled out of his pocket was a certain orange book. Is TT that? Issei whispered, even Razor was having his own shock expression at the orange book. This, gentlemen. Naruto grinned and turned the book around to show them the title of the book, is the special edition and also the next volume of Ica Paradise, Holy Maidens, which won't be published until next year. Naruto said with a dangerous glint in his eyes, which was shining ironically. Senpai. How? Issei cried, his fingers twitching uncontrollably at the sight of said book. How can you get your hand on that book? Please tell me. This was too much for Naruto to handle that he couldn't help himself to crack in excitement. This brought back a lot of memories, especially when he showed the next volume of that time to Kakashi. Simple. Everyone held their breath, waiting for his answer. Ica Paradise was one of the most popular books in the world, even among the supernatural world. Because I'm the author. He dropped the bomb. Only Shayna and her peerage remained her composed as they already knew about his novels. Razor managed to speak out, but before he could say anything more Issei had rushed forward with determination in his eyes. Screw it, I'm going to take that bell from you, Naruto-sama. Issei cried and reached his hand, aiming for the bell. Naruto was still standing tall, holding the book in his hand with a bored expression. But before he could reach the bell, Razor Phoenix had already appeared before him and also reached out for the bell. His face shone with victory. But before he could touch the bell, a hand suddenly grabbed his wrist and forced it to the other side. Razor's hand smashed into Issei's face hard enough to send the boy to the ground. Naruto then thrust his right hand, which was still holding the orange book, to Razor's chest. The son of Phoenix then coughed a large amount of blood before he sent him flying towards the wall, which nearly made a hole through the walls around Garden of Grimoire residence. Everyone stood in silence as the display of power. Why you, how dare you hit me? Razor walked out from the wall, coughing violently before returning back to normal. He felt his heart being ripped apart when Naruto smashed his hand to his chest, and it wasn't just pure physical strength. "You should focus on the fight," Naruto said as he opened the book and read it casually, rather than throwing insults, you know. Issei then stood up as fast as he could while ignoring the pain on his cheek and punched Naruto, however with his eyes still on the book easily blocked the punch without any trouble, even when his arms was covered in metal gauntlet. Widened his eyes, Issei then punched with his other hand, but once again Naruto blocked it easily. Issei continued to attack as best as he could, throwing kick after kick and then punch and punch, but just like any other time Naruto blocked all the attack with only his left hand. And still reading the book. "Stop blocking," Issei then yelped in frustration. "Okay. Really? No." Issei's hopeful face then dropped when Naruto suddenly caught his hand and pulled his body forward. Before Issei knew it, a knee was thrust into his stomach and then another kicked him straight in the face. Everyone's eyes followed the flying form of Issei before returning back to Razor, who was now having a huge fireball above his head. "Die!" Razor cried out and throwing the flaming orb toward Naruto. His friends all cried out for him to dodge, but Naruto only stood there, reading his book uncaringly. Then much to their shock, the ground underneath Naruto cracked and sand busted out from it, forming a shield above Naruto against the flame. "Use my power wisely, Naruto." "Thanks, Shukaku," Naruto thanked the Ikibi in his mindscape before turning his eyes slightly to Razor, who was looking at him in pure shock. "Shall we continue, boys?" Razor threw himself forward with his hand covered in flame, but before his fist was able to touch Naruto, the sand once again shot up and blocked Razor's attack. Another then another, none of Razor's flaming fists reached Naruto as the sand was too hard to pass and seemed to have a mind of its own, protecting Naruto, without him controlling it. Dragon shot. Both Razor and Naruto heard Issei cried out his trademark technique. The red orb of pure demonic energy flew with great speed toward Naruto. Razor quickly flew out of the way to avoid the explosion that was going to happen. Even with his regeneration power, that spell could leave a nasty wound before it healed up. Naruto, however, didn't do anything as the dragon shot aimed straight at him. The sand around him gathered up and blocked the shot. When the orb connected with the shield of sand, it exploded powerfully, creating a large smoke and sent rock and dirt everywhere. "Did I make it?" Issei asked himself. He didn't want to use any of his power and save his ultimate one for Razor, but Naruto had proven himself very hard to defeat, so he had no other choice other than using Dragon Shot. "Naruto-kun," Rias called out worriedly. She couldn't see anything in the smoke. "Issei, when we come home you're going to be punished for this." But. No buts. "Don't worry, Haim," Beowulf said to Rias as he focused on the match. "A shot like that won't be able to pass through his defense." Just like Beowulf's words, when the small was cleared, everyone could see the blonde still reading his book and looking unharmed by the explosion. The sand that had shielded him away from the blast fell to the ground, making Issei gasp in shock. "That's quite a power, Issei, but unfortunately, you will have to try harder than that," Naruto said to the boy. "You too, Razor, if you really want to defeat me, the bell's still on me, you know." Both of them gritted their teeth in frustration. So far none of the powers they tried on him worked, and even so he still looked like he wasn't trying much. "He is toying with them, he's not even trying to do so," Lord Grimori said, smiling a little. "This brings back memories, just like old times." "What do you mean, Sama?" Rias asked. The other also turned their head to look at him in interest. "Your sister, Sarafal-sama and Ijuka-sama were trained by Naruto-sama when they were young." Naruto turned his head toward the man with crimson-haired, apparently Rias' father, interest in his blue eyes. "I still remember those days when your sister and the other tried to take the bells from him. 3 students, yet there were only 2 bells. The one who couldn't get it will be tied to a wooden log and watch the other 2 ate lunch. And they were forbidden to have breakfast." Venelana finished. "Wow, I would never think it would be that extreme." Surtur II scratched his chin. "Being tied up while feeling really hungry and your comrades were eating in front of you would be something he wouldn't want to come through." "Well, that sounds like something I would do." Naruto chuckled. "So, who is the one being tied the most?" he asked, remembered the bell test with his first sensei and teammates. "Shana. You." Rias turned her head toward her sister, trying her hardest not to laugh at the information and at Shana's blushing face. "Please don't ask Rias-chan." Shana lowered her head in embarrassment. ignoring the chuckling of her own peerage. Speaking of which, Shayna looked around and began to wonder where was Seraphol, who Grafia had given a call to tell her about Naruto. Ijuka was very busy lately, so he didn't have time to come, but he did promise to come and greeted his first sensei later. However, Seraphol was nowhere to be found. Knowing the energetic magical girl, she should be here a second after Grafia's call. Returned to our hero, Naruto was having trouble to focus on the fight. His mind was filled with visions about a young crimson-haired girl, being tied up to a wooden log looking at him with big puppy dog eyes like she was pleading him to let her go. Naruto, focus! Kyuubi shouted in his mindscape, pulling Naruto out of his thought. Naruto then blinked rapidly to clear his vision just in time to see Razor throwing a giant fireball at him, bigger than anything the youngest son of Phoenix had created in his life, in hope it was enough to reach Naruto. Before the sand could block the attack, he heard the brown hair man shouted out. "Come on, Aniki, stop blocking and show us something that made your name." Smirking at the challenge, the blonde then let the sand around him fell freely and crouched down. The book on his hand had been closed as he focused his strength on both legs before launching himself toward leaving a large crater on the ground. Razor's eyes widened when he saw the blonde launched at him with extremely speed, faster than anyone he had seen in his life. He didn't even have time to block when Naruto twitched his body and kicked him right on the chin from below. Razor cried out in pain when he felt his jaw broke completely before returning to normal thanks to his healing ability, but he had been launched toward the sky with such speed that easily break neck. Bringing out his wings, Flame Razor managed to regain his speed and saw that Naruto had just landed back down toward the ground. "I win." Naruto heard a cry of victory and didn't need to turn back to know that Issei Hyodo was very near, palm aiming for the bell at his waist. But before he could reach for the spell again, Naruto disappeared in a puff of smoke, and in his place was a wooden log. Naruto then reappeared behind Issei and lowered himself down to the ground, bringing his hands together making it into the tiger hand seal before shouting out his most favorite technique. Konohagakure Hidden Taijutsu Ugi. Naruto thrust his hands forward and inserting his fingers into Issei's backside, channeling chakra toward his finger to make the attack 10 times worse and more dramatically than normal. Senin Garashi. Naruto declared loudly and pushed his hands up, shooting Issei to the sky with the boy screaming out in pain while holding his backside. There were many reactions to the technique. Rias was looking at Naruto like he was crazy with a heavy blush while her queen was giggling with a hand to cover her mouth. Shayna's peerage's male members were basically rolling on the ground, roaring in laughter as Grafia, Lord Grimori and Venelana were shaking their head. Shayna, however, suddenly moved her hand toward her ass, unconsciously feel the pain Issei was feeling. All around the garden, everyone was also having similar reaction to the group. "That's Devil San, is how I made my name." Naruto nodded his head before putting his book into his pocket. He got a lot in mind right now and preferred to end this match quickly, so he could ask the ones who appeared to know about him and his, maybe forgotten past, more than himself. "Maybe he's right, I should stop dodging," Naruto said and took the stand of a basic taijutsu style. "Now, come at me with the intent to kill, or you will never be able to touch me," Naruto said emotionlessly as a thin aura blue appeared around the blonde. "Here we go," Enku muttered. He, just like anyone who had witnessed Naruto in real action, was still remembering the power he displayed. The others, though, were still amazed by the power he was releasing and the hardness in his eyes. Anyone who was experienced could tell that he was a well-trained warrior, hardened by each and every single fight he came through. It was hard to believe that just a moment ago he was a carefree young man. "Damn it," Issei shakily stood back up, his ass still stinging with pain from the ridiculous technique. "Guess I had no choice then, I will end this fight in 10 seconds. "Oh, very confident Issei, but can you do it?" Naruto asked calmly. "You sure talk big for saying that you will finish it in 10 seconds. Then I will finish you off in 5 seconds. It won't be like last time, Rias Pawn." With Naruto had lowered his sand shield down, Razor was pretty confident that he could defeat both of them now. They could attack all their want, but he would surely heal back to normal, and when they was tired he would go for a strike. "Razor Phoenix, Naruto Senpai," Issei declared, "I'm going to crush the two of you down with everything I got." The heat turned toward Rias. "Bushu. Please allow me to use promotion here." Bushu looked doubtful for a moment before nodding at his request. Even though she placed her bet on Naruto, Issei was still her servant and she would always listen to her servant's request. Promotion. Queen. Issei then promoted to the ultimate piece and Naruto could feel the power that was coming from within the boy. Such an interesting power. Promotion to queen to increase the power, just like chest. This was what a peerage was all about. Bushu. Issei shouted towards Rias. I don't have talent for swords like Kiba. I'm not a genius like Akano-san at using demonic power. I don't have a crazy strength like Kaneko-chan. Even still, I will become the strongest pawn, believe in me Bushu. I will become Hokage someday, believe it. Naruto smiled as the speech he always said when he was a child played back to his mind thanks to Issei. This boy, even though he was a pervert, was very promising. And had great potential. Sheen. Overboost. Welsh Dragon Overbooster. The jewel in Issei's sacred gear released a red light which soon shone throughout the entire garden. A deep crimson color aura then covered the pawn of Rias Grimori. Yeah, use it. However, only for 10 seconds. Your body can't endure more than that. Issei nodded to the dragon laid in his body and readied for the battle. That's right. With 10 seconds you will able to beat both of them. Didrag grinned before his face made a frown. Though, I doubt you will hold a candle against that man if he really the one he is. Everyone held their breath. This was it. The climax of the battle would begin right now. We can take them down. And then he leapt forward Razor while emitting a red aura. His body was equipped with a red armor. A plate armor that had the motif of a dragon which had a sharp shape. A perfect replica of Issei's left gauntlet appeared on his right arm. The jewel that was present on the gauntlet also appeared on both his arms, shoulders, knees and the middle of the torso. On the back there was a rocket-like booster propulsion. An armor. You made the power of Sekiryute shape into a physical form. Razor was shocked. His comment was acute. However, Naruto remained calm and waited for the attack. This is the power of the Emperor of Dragons. The balance breaker, boosted gear scale male. If you want to stop me, go and ask Mao-sama. After all, it seems like this is the hated forbidden technique. And punched both of his fists together to create a massive demonic power. It was so big that it covered half the side of the garden. Razor taking this chance also summoned the biggest flaming ball he got and threw it at Naruto. Both attacks, equal size and power, came straight at the blonde who stood fearless. Byakugan, Naruto called out and channeled chakra to his eyes as the pride of Hyuga appeared. His eyes then lost its azure color and replaced with a pale lavender one. The veins at his temples became more noticeable. Hakusho Kaden. Releasing the chakra from every tenketsu of his body, Naruto began to spin rapidly, creating a rotating chakra shield around him. The spinning chakra shield got bigger and bigger until it almost as big as an entire garden, easily negated the two attacks. Then Naruto stopped spinning, and as soon as he stopped, the Eternal Shinobi launched himself forward in a Jiyuken stance, ready to use what Hinata taught him after he gained the Byakugan. Razor and Issei, who was still shocked about what just happened, quickly snapped out of their thought and rushed toward Naruto with Issei faster thanks to his rocket booster. Aiming straight at Naruto's face, Issei punched with all his might, but Naruto had already predicted the attack, using his left forearm to force the entire armored hand away before bringing his right hand up in a Jiyuken strike. Aiming for Issei's left torso, Naruto stroked two tenketsu before striking his left shoulder, upper right hand, midsection and with both of his legs. He didn't try to hurt the boy much, just making sure the pervert wouldn't get up while he was taking care of Razor. Before Issei could fall to the ground, Naruto clapped both of his hands together to summon his favorite weapon, a tri-prongs kunai with kanji on the handle. Something was wrong with Naruto, and Shana could see it in every of his movement. Usually he wouldn't need to come that far to take on two opponents like this, even when one of them was the son of Finek's household and the other was a legendary heavenly dragon. He was holding his ground, yes, but there were too many waste movements. Shana-sama. I know Graphia. Shana whispered back to her queen. She understood how Naruto couldn't be able to fight like he used to. He had been slacked off, 10 years without any training nor real fight. Naruto gritted his teeth when he felt his muscle stretched painfully and his body was slowly not answer to his mind. It was a good choice that he chose Jiyuken to fight, or else the other taijutsu styles would be too much for his current endurance and put him on the ground right now. But he had to keep fighting, for the sake of Ria's happiness. He had to keep going forward for his friend. Taking the kunai in his hand, Naruto threw it at Razor. This fight needed to end right now. The eternal shinobi then got into the Jiyuken stance with his body crouched low and his arms outstretched, one arm pointed to the sky while the other to the ground. He wouldn't, Cert Second muttered in shock. Hirishin Jiyukenhu, Hake Rokujian Sho, one of his most dangerous combination, the technique that no one had never be able to dodge or even see it coming. In a blink of an eye, Naruto disappeared in a flash of yellow. All around the stadium, the older devils all widened their eyes as they saw Naruto Uzumaki's trademark jutsu. The kunai came near Razor, and all he seen was a yellow flash. The next instant, he was sent flying into the wall. Naruto was standing with both of his palm on the place where Razor's chest was just a moment ago. All they seen was a flash of yellow. Naruto-kun. Both Rias and Shayna shouted out in horror when the blonde fell to his knees while holding his body in pain, breathing hardly. Your muscle had been torn apart, Naruto. Stay still and let us fix you, Kyuubi said loudly inside of Naruto and began to channel his chakra into Naruto's system, slowly healing his torn up muscle and broken bones. Damn it, I didn't know I'm this weak, Naruto thought. Living in a normal and peaceful life also had its downside, and Naruto had just experienced it in the hard way. Next time when charging yourself in a fight, take a proper workout first, Kyuubi roared angrily. Despite in pain, Naruto couldn't help but grin. But a groaning sound made his heart stopped. Issei was coming at him while crawling on the ground, the armor had already disappeared. And he was having his hand on the bell. Damn it, Naruto cursed in his mind before using both of his legs to crisscross around his neck, holding the boy in place before using his hand to grab Issei's wrist and squealed hard, causing Issei to scream out in pain and let go of the bell. Another sound made Naruto turned his head, and this time it was Razor. You, how dare you? Naruto was speechless. Razor was still standing even though it was just barely. Blood was flowing down to his chin and strained his tuxedo. It took a moment before Razor slowly standing straight up, breathing hard but looked completely normal. No way, the blonde muttered, just how was this guy healing ability? I will fucking kill you, you damn lowly human. Razor shouted out and sent a wave of flame toward Naruto. Gritting his teeth, Naruto stood back up, still on his knees, and performed a series of hand seals. Goten Doryuheki, he slammed his hands to the ground, making a solid wall of earth to raise up from the ground and block the flaming fire. The spectators let out a sigh of relief before they focused their eyes back on the fight. Naruto-senpai, Issei muttered. Stay down, Issei, you're in no condition to fight. Naruto gritted his teeth before standing back up. His body had already healed back to normal. We both aim for the same thing, it's Ria's happiness. Let me fight for her, you had already done enough. But, don't worry, Naruto turned his head back to the brunette on the ground and grinned. Like I said, nothing is impossible with Naruto Uzumaki, and disappeared in a flash of yellow. Naruto reappeared near the wall where his kunai had impaled into, right behind Razor, and pulled it out. The eternal shinobi then threw it at Razor and ran forward. The youngest son of Phoenix quickly dodged to the side just in time before the kunai could stab into his head. However, before he could prepare for it, Naruto had already appeared behind him in a flash of yellow, with a blue orb in his hand. Rasengan. Naruto slammed it into Razor's stomach and pressed the destructive orb hard into the taller blonde. Razor screamed out in pain when he felt his flesh being torn apart by Naruto's Rasengan. Naruto looked at the wound and felt his eyes widened slightly when his small flesh had already knitted back. Even an instant later it was torn by the Rasengan. Fuinjutsu? Shukaku asked. No, they are too powerful even if this guy's an immortal. Naruto dispersed the Rasengan and slammed his fist into the wound before it could heal back to normal, making Razor cough out blood before another punch to the face sent him flying. Can you see Naruto Uzumaki? Razor stopped himself on the ground and flared out his flaming wings. This is the ultimate power of Phoenix clan, the clan that inherited the power of a phoenix. I'm immortal and my power is absolute. No matter how much power you throw at me, I always heal up. You're only exhausted yourself and wasting your time when all you should do was giving up. Trash will forever be trash, he laughed loudly. How about I bury you alive then? The laugh instantly stopped. All I could just hurt you until the pain is too much for you to handle, and your brain would collapse because of it. You can always cure the physically pain, but not mentally. His speech made a heavy atmosphere appeared around the stadium, especially the Phoenix clan. As in Shinobi, I don't play fair so I could make it happen right here, Naruto muttered, but first, you would need to be taught 3 important lessons. Naruto ran toward Razor with his brought back. The son of Phoenix clan quickly brought out his wings and flew to the sky before flying back down with neck-breaking speed. 2 opponents slammed their fist into each other and created a powerful shockwave, knocking back several devils that was watching and also making the ground underneath cracked. First lesion, there is no such thing called absolute, Naruto cried out and grinned his fist into Razor's 1. Powers are earned not given. The power you're using is from your family, not you. Naruto pushed Razor back, crushing the blonde under the extreme pressure of his punch. Lesson number 2, Naruto threw the kunai as hard as he could, making it flew past the flying form of Razor before teleporting himself behind the blonde. Caught the kunai in his hand, Naruto punched Razor right on his face and forced his body to slam on the ground, hard enough to create a large crater. Respect your opponent, even right now I'm respecting you, looking at you as my equal. When you respect your opponent you might be able to see the real power their pose, and be able to figure it out the strength to overcome their powers. Naruto grabbed Razor's neck and brought him up, glaring at his opponent with cold glare, and you look down on everyone and never respect them just because their statue is lower than you. That's why you will never be able to beat me. Hold on. Do you even know what you are doing? This engagement is important and necessary for the future of devils. It's not something a disgusting human like you can butt into. Naruto released Razor's neck and spinning around, thrusting his elbow into his face, breaking his nose in the process. Lesson number 3, Naruto focused his chakra, his enormous chakra resource into his fist and readied to release it at Razor. Do I look like I give a shit about this world and its future? Naruto snarled. All I cared about is my friends. As long as one of them is still here I felt complete and managed to stay alive and don't turn insane. You Razor Phoenix, just a few moments ago you're about to take away my friend, my most favorite costumer and also my little sister's tutor. Naruto then punched Razor and also released the bended up chakra in his fist, creating a powerful shockwave that shook the whole stadium and sent Razor straight forward the massive knight statue. The punch was so powerful that it completely destroyed the status, making it crack before breaking into millions pieces and fell on top of Razor. Lesion learned, Naruto whispered to himself and resealed his kunai into his dimensional storage. They were silent, before Shayna Lucifer clapped her hands together and soon, everyone followed suited. Even the House of Phoenix was clapping for him. I totally forget this feeling, Naruto sighed, putting both his hands on his hip and looked toward the sky. Ring. Ha ha ha. I won. Issei Hyodo screamed out in victory while holding the bell above his head. Naruto looked at his belt and saw that the bell had disappeared. Sighing, the eternal shinobi just let out a small smile before saying, all right, I give up. He chuckled and pulled out the book. Here you go kid. He threw it to Issei who caught it and looked at the book with teary eyes. This is the best day of my life. Issei cried before his legs felt him. The brunette braced himself to the impact. However, before his body could touch the ground, Naruto had caught the boy's arm and stopped the fall. Easy there kid, Naruto grinned. I didn't know that you're such a good person senpai. Issei laughed with terror in his eyes, but then felt his face smashed into the ground. Oi, what the hell? Just like you said, I'm a good person, Naruto grinned evilly. The winner of this fight is. But before Shayna could declare the winner, a column of flame shot out from the mountain of falling rocks, blowing a good amount of debris out of the way before the arm of Razor Phoenix could be seen. This guy, just when will he give up? Issei muttered as he looked at Razor's form from the ground. Cracking his knuckles while grinning, Naruto walked toward the son of Razor Phoenix with his body flicking with pure chakra, making the spectators all widen their eyes in shock. How dare you do this to me? A high class, Razor wiped the blood and sweat and dirt from his eyes and looked up, only to meet with a massive jaw of a gigantic Kyuubi. A yellow pure energy Kyuubi with Naruto Uzumaki standing in its mouth. Grahhhhhhhh. The beast released a powerful roar, shaking the entire side of the city. Razor fell to his butt while screaming like a child that just seen ghost, looking at Naruto with pure white horror eyes. Please stop. Before Naruto could do anything, a familiar drill-haired girl landed in front of Razor with her hands stretched out protectively. "Please stop, Naruto-sama, my Oni-sama can't continue fighting like this," she said with a shaking tone. Naruto could tell that she was scared to death. Her knees were shaking uncontrollably but still managed to keep a brave face. Naruto slowly made the Kyuubi's hand raised up and Revel closed her eyes, waiting for the strike that would most likely ended her life. But rather, she felt a hand being put onto her head. Revel opened her eyes to see the smiling face of Naruto, who was looking at her with warmness in his eyes. "Take care of your brother Revel," Naruto told her. "Family is always the most important thing," and turned around with his body returned back to normal. "I will, Naruto-sama," Revel whispered with a blushing face. "The winner of this fight, Issei Hyodo." Shayna stood up from her chair and declared the name of Ria's servant, making the whole stadium cheered out. Naruto then turned his head to look at the crimson hair Mao, who was also looking at him. Their eyes met, and Naruto was sure they had a lot to talk about. A whole lot. "Even though I don't want to leave Asia at home alone, especially wearing this ridiculous suit," Naruto muttered with a scowl before his face brightened up like a 1,000-watt light bulb. "But I have to say I'm really enjoying this." The reason he was more happy than usual was because of Rias Gromori, who had just been released from her unwanted marriage engagement, was helping him fix the suit he was wearing properly. "It called a tuxedo, Naruto-kun," Rias pointed a finger up and told him with an authoritative tone before returning back to help him choose the cravat. The crimson-haired young woman was holding two cravats in her hands, one blue and one black, as she currently placed the black one near his neck and made a thoughtful expression. I don't think black will look good on you." "Of course it doesn't," Naruto declared. "I only look good with orange. You know, it's a combination of red and yellow." "Are you flirting with me, Naruto Uzumaki?" Rias asked, winking cutely at him. "Firstly, Rias-chan, your hair is crimson, and secondly, Issei was the one who had won the match and got your freedom back." Naruto shrugged his shoulders, "But hey, can I give it a try?" "You're my date tonight, I'm sure you can," Rias giggled. "Are you flirting with me, Rias Gromori?" Naruto smirked and then asked her the same question she asked him, earning a giggle from the girl and a playful slap to his arm. As the couple was going at it again, Shayna Lucifer watched the scene play out in front of her and couldn't help but feel jealous of her sister. They were in Rias' massive room while Shayna was in her old room at the Gromori residence, watching the couple, mainly Naruto, through the secret camera she used to use to watch her sister while she was asleep. Some might call her a pervert, but she was simply a sis-con. How could she not? Her sister was flirting with her husband, who clearly did not remember anything about her and the time they spent with each other. "Calm down, Shayna," the Crimson Mao comforted herself. "He's already yours, just make sure he remembers you and then everything will return to normal again." However, it wasn't like she could control her feelings. A day had passed since Issei won the match against Razor and Naruto. Based on his wish, Ria's marriage engagement with Razor had been cancelled, which both families had agreed to that it was for the best. However, the upcoming event that would take place at Gromori residence tonight was a celebration party for Naruto's return and was thrown by Ria's parents. Naruto was surprised to hear that he was very well known among the older devils and most of them still looked up to him, so naturally the devil world had to celebrate his return. To be popular about something and in a world that he didn't remember, or didn't think even existed at all wasn't something Naruto came across every day. He had returned to his house at the human world to rest and recover from all the pressure he exerted to his body for the day, and then returned to Ria's house via Highschooldxd at afternoon. This reminded him too much about how everything went after the Fourth Shinobi War. Everybody seemed to know him, well, the older ones that is, and girls basically threw themselves at him. However, the one who confused him the most was Shayna Lucifer. Apparently their relationship didn't just stop at teacher and student. He could see it all in her eyes when Shayna looked at him. "I think you won't need a tie," Rias said in defeat and threw all the ties away. She looked at the clock on the wall and saw that it was still pretty early. We still have around 2 hours left. Come on, Naruto-kun, let me show you around the castle." Naruto nodded his head before following Rias, but before the door closed, Shayna's eyes widened when she saw Naruto look directly into the camera and then winked with a mysterious smile. "I still can't believe that I once lived here. Naruto muttered as he walked through the corridors of Grimori residence, looking around the house like a child excited for new things. Me neither, I can't believe that Shana Oni-sama erased my memories, Rias muttered the last part. Her mother hadn't told her much, but ever since the day she was born Naruto had been the one who played with her whenever he came here. She was shocked when she found out that Naruto was an immortal, living in the era of which the human world was still called elemental nations, and began a journey that lasted for a very long time after becoming an immortal and then later being caught in the great war between heaven and hell. That was when he met her family and later became the Yondaimo's master. Aside from that, Venelana hadn't told her anything else, saying that all the questions would be answered in due time. This is Shana Oni-sama's room. She left this room when she went to live in Lucifer Castle at Lilith, the capital of the underworld. Rias pointed her hand towards the room at her right. We shouldn't disturb her, Shana Oni-sama can't abandon her duty at a time like this. You mean paperwork? Naruto asked, remembering the eternal enemy of every cage, save himself. With shadow clones he could take care of paperwork while he himself did other things, of course not under the watchful eyes of Shikamaru. And Bolt said he didn't care about his son. Yeah, Rias nodded her head and began to lead Naruto towards the other place. She didn't like the way Naruto looked at her sister and of course she felt jealous and threatened by Shana. Then again, she was talking about the author of the Ika Ika Paradise series here. Naruto probably had a super pervert mentality, which he used to write those books and do his research. The latest volume had shown the appearance of the main female character was slightly like Akino's. She wouldn't be surprised if the next volume had a girl with red hair or even a twin. Hey, Rias-chan, I wanted to ask you something. Looking back at the room before turning back to Rias, Naruto asked with a curious face, does your sister have a boyfriend or even a husband? As far as I remember, no she doesn't. She was really starting to doubt her memories now, but that was all she could tell Naruto. But she does have a son with a lover long ago, his name is Milika's Grimori and he's 10 years old. Rias then glared at him suspiciously, you're not going to try make a move on her are you? She's your student after all. No, of course not, Naruto chuckled and held both of his arms out in defense. Like I have a chance with someone of her status, he scratched the back of his neck and grinned sheepishly. Rias seemed very pleased with his answer and continued on walking. But nonetheless, that guy must be one hell of a lucky son of a bitch, Naruto suddenly said. I mean just look at Shana, she is one hell of a sexy chick. What? Rias scolded, am I not as good as her? Truth be told, their looks were almost the same, only Shana was more mature, curvier and sexier. But Rias was sure she would be like that in the near future. Oh sorry, you can't stop the author of Ika Ika from looking at the girls, can you? He joked and Rias slapped his arm playfully. But still, Shana's son was 10 years old and I disappeared from the devil world 10 years ago. Naruto thought to himself and his mind was already working on possible solutions for it. Milika's was Shana's son, and Rias didn't know the name of the father. And anything related to Naruto in her memories had been erased. No, Naruto shook his head rapidly, there's no way something like that had happened. Sighing, Naruto continued on enjoying the tour Rias was giving him. Cleared out of his thoughts, Naruto couldn't help but feel sorry for his lost past. Living in a place like this was probably very boring. Where is she? Naruto stood with his arms crossed, foot tapping the ground impatiently. Relax senpai, I'm sure Bushu is coming, Issei said while holding the book Naruto gave him in hands, reading it in front of everyone without shame. Who's your date kid? Kaneko-chan. Good for you. At least with that girl around, someone would be able to control him. Naruto muttered and began to wait for Rias again. Kaneko had entered inside the hall while Issei had decided to wait with Naruto for another minute. The brunette had taken Naruto as his role model and looked up to the blonde. Both of them were standing in front of the back door of the hall where Rias and Naruto would come inside when the Crimson Heiress arrived, who had returned to her room after the tour to change. Sorry for making you wait, Naruto-kun. A soft voice made both Naruto and Issei's head jerk up, by which the latter then dropped both the book and his jaw to the ground in shock. Standing before them was what Naruto could describe a true goddess. Naruto had thought Rias looked stunning in her wedding dress before, but right now she was absolutely gorgeous. Rias was wearing a white long dress, kind of like a white version of what her sister had wore during the wedding but with two straps holding the dress up behind her neck. The straps also exposed a large amount of her cleavage, but was modest at the same time. Rias's dress was long, nearly touching the ground but with a long slit at the left side so that she could move easier and of course, show off her long creamy leg. She didn't wear any makeup, at least she didn't appear to do so. But she did wear a pair of gold earrings and bracelets on her right wrist. Looking at her he had to wonder why they called themselves devils when their beauty matched any angels out there, at least that's what he thought. Rias, beauty could be on par with her sister right now. Wow Rias-chan, you look great, he managed to speak out. Yufufu, thank you Naruto-kun, you don't look so bad either. Rias giggled before turning her head to Issei. Issei, shouldn't you catch up with Kaneko right now? Alright, she's going to kill me if I don't hurry. Issei snapped out of his daze and quickly went inside the main hall. Shall we milady? Naruto offered Rias his arm, which she happily linked her arm with him. The couple then opened the door together and stepped inside of the room. Naruto was soon greeted with the fanciest and most elegant celebration he had ever seen in his life. Food and drinks, which Naruto recognized to be very expensive, had been placed on the long tables beside the wall. The hall was pretty crowded, though Naruto knew most of them were older than 100 years old, but they appeared to be in their mid-20s. There was also a lot young-looking devils around, and all of them were wearing high-class tuxedos and dresses. By the time Naruto and Rias stepped into the room, all eyes were focused on them and Naruto soon got uncomfortable. He was never a guy that wanted a lot of attention, well when he was small yes, but around this time he always avoided attention as best as he could. So having all the eyes focused on him like this wouldn't be too good for his cover. However Naruto had already gotten his foot into these supernatural worlds too deep to get out now, so he would most likely have to accept this and live on from now. Rias though, walked like a true princess, looking very pleased with her date and herself. How could she not? She was freed from her unwanted engagement and was accompanied by the Naruto Uzumaki to a celebration party just for him. Welcome back Naruto-sama. It's good to have you back Naruto-sama. It's a great honor for me to finally meet you Naruto-sama. My parent talked a lot about you, it's great to have you at our side. In just a few minutes wandering around the hall with Rias, Naruto received all kinds of greeting and praise that any famous celebrity would get and even more than that. However, despite the greetings, his replies were only, and, okay, and the occasional, thank you. To be famous and well known about something you didn't remember was never easy. At least it wasn't like when he was a child, to be hated just because he had a biju in his gut, and of course, didn't know anything about it until Mizuki told him. You seem to be enjoying yourself, Naruto told the beauty next to him after she had ended her conversation with yet another rich family that came to greet him. Of course I am, Rias smiled and then linked their arms together again. I got the most handsome man as my date, of course I am enjoying myself. Good to know. Naruto looked around, everything here seems new to me. You will get used to it soon, so don't worry Naruto-kun. Rias pushed herself closer to Naruto, whose arm was slightly touching her breast. I'm sure I can help you with that. Yufufu, you sure are enjoying yourself Bushu. The familiar gentle voice that belonged to the queen of Rias Grimoire, made the couple turn to look at the ones who were approaching them. Sure enough, Akino was walking toward them with the rest of Rias' peerage following closely behind, all wearing expensive-looking clothing for the night. Though Issei was holding his hip and looked like he was in pain while Kaneko was walking beside him with her usual emotionless expression, the petite white-haired girl had probably punched Issei for being a pervert. Akino, everyone. Hello Akino-san, Naruto greeted the black-haired girl with a friendly smile. No need for such honorific Naruto-sama, she said gently. Just call me the way you call Bushu. Alright Akino-chan, Naruto nodded before turning his head to Kiba. Naruto-senpai, I guess we still haven't properly introduced ourselves to each other yet. I'm Kiba Yuto, Rias Grimoire-sama's knight. The handsome blonde-haired young man introduced, offering Naruto his hand and a smile. It's good to finally meet the charming Prince of Kuo in person, Naruto joked and took Kiba's hand in a handshake before turning to the large members of the group, who just stared at him blankly. Hey there Kaneko-chan, Naruto said with a warm smile. Hello, she said curtly, but knowing this girl's personality, Naruto wasn't expecting more at all. So, this is your little group huh, Rias-chan. The blonde turned to his date, earning a nod to his question. They're all my adorable servants, Rias said with pride in her voice. Reincarnated into devils to serve me and in turn, my family. Naruto nodded. He looked thoughtful for a moment before saying, Rias-chan, I've been thinking about this for a while now. Rias nodded and waited for him to continue, can you? But before he could finish his sentence the lights in the hall suddenly went off. Everyone became silent and focused their attention at the head of the hall, where 4 devils were sitting on 4 chairs that looked like thrones to Naruto. Shayna was also sitting on a crimson throne, with Graphia standing close behind her, keeping her stoic face. There are leaders, Rias whispered to Naruto. The Yandai Mao of the underworld. Naruto looked in awe at the sight of 4 of the most powerful devils in the underworld. Even with this distance and non-dangerous situation, he could feel the incredible raw power radiating from them, and to be honest, he hadn't felt this much power in someone since Madara Uchiha. Especially Shayna, her power was unbelievable. When he met her at Rias' wedding he didn't have the chance to directly feel her power. And he was supposed to be their teacher. Kind of hard to believe even for him. The black-haired Mao that had her hair tied into a ponytail suddenly turned her eyes to look at him and then winked, flashing him a beautiful and seductive smile, then turned away before anyone could notice. Rias, noticing Naruto's eyes was fixed on the black-haired Mao, said, she is Seraphal Leviathan, the second most powerful female of the underworld, next to Oni-sama. Her name used to be Seraphal Citri, but after the war she took over the title of the original Leviathan. Graphia once challenged her for the title, but she was defeated. Really? Naruto asked, surprised. Yes, but still, Graphia is the 3rd strongest female and the strongest queen of the underworld. Naruto nodded, he didn't need to be told to know about that. Seraphal-sama is also the Satan in charge of foreign affairs. What about the man next to Shayna-san? Naruto asked, looking at the brown-haired man. His name is Ajuka Beelzebub, formerly known as Ajuka Astaroth, is one of the Yudai Mao. He is the chief advisor for the technology department, and is the creator of the evil pieces system and the rating game. So, a brain type, Naruto nodded. What about the guy that is about to pass out? Naruto pointed his hand to the one at Seraphal's right, who looked bored and was slowly falling asleep. For some reason he had a feeling that this guy was just like Shikamaru. He is Falbium Asmodeus, the Mao in charge of military affairs. She introduced, he's known for being Underworld's greatest tactician and strategist. He's very smart, but I heard that he lives by the thought, working means losing. Damn, I was right, Naruto grinned, making Rias looked at him in confusion. What do you mean? However, before he could continue, Shayna suddenly stood up, holding out her hand to gather everyone's attention. When she was sure their eyes were on her, she proclaimed loudly. My people, as you know, today we gather here to celebrate the return of our hero, Naruto Uzumaki, who had stayed on our side during the Great War. Shayna looked at him and flashed Naruto a smile before she continued. When the 4 Maos led the devils to war against the angels and fallen angels, he had been the one who directly opposed the idea. While remaining neutral, he still supported us by training the ones now known to you as Lucifer, Leviathan, and Beelzebub so that we could lead the anti-Mao faction and fight in our war to regain the peace. She gently took the glass of wine from the table and held it above her head. Let's give him our dearest welcome. Everyone cheered out before holding their wine above their head and called out his name, looking directly at the blonde. Naruto just looked around dumbfounded while scratching the back of his neck, trying to force a smile on his face. When the cheers had finally ended and everyone returned to talk with each other, Naruto was about to lead Rias to somewhere more private so he could ask her about a few things, until Naruto-sensei. A high-pitched and girlish squeal resounded, and the feeling of someone running at him from behind immediately put the eternal shinobi on guard. But rather than pull out a kunai and prepared for battle, Naruto's body had reacted on its own. Shooting his hands up, Naruto caught a pair of slender arms that was about to wrap around his neck and twisted her left arm roughly, not enough to break her arm but enough to make her let out a yelp of pain. The blonde then sidestepped so that he was standing behind her. Linking his foot with her ankle, Naruto swiped her leg, making the girl fall towards the ground face first and her left arm being twisted behind her neck. His knee was on her back and was pushing hard, immobilizing the girl. Why in the name of Rakuto Sennin did he react that way? Ouch! The girl, who Naruto instantly recognized as Seraphal Leviathan, moaned out in pain. I'm so sorry, Naruto-sensei. Seraphal-sama, Rias called out in worry. Are you alright? Naruto-kun, get your knee off her, she demanded, which Naruto followed immediately. Hey, she jumped on me first. Naruto held out his hands in defense while Rias helped the black-haired mouse stand up. Rias then turned her eyes to Naruto, but before she could scold him for being so stupid, they all heard a small chuckle behind them and realized that the other leaders of the devil faction were approaching them. I guess some things will never change, Ijuka Beelzebub said with a smile, looking at Seraphal, who sticking out her tongue at him childishly. It's good to see you again, sensei. Damn, I never thought I would be called sensei by the most powerful Peo. Dev, whatever. Naruto smiled while scratching his chin, but realized the brown-haired man was looking at him with calculating eyes. Problem. No sensei, but I'm taller than you now, he burst out in laughter and punched Naruto on his shoulder playfully. Ouch, that hurt. It wasn't the punch that hurt, but height wasn't something Naruto loved to talk about. He turned his eyes to the last crimson-haired woman that was standing and looking at him quietly. Thank you, by the way, for giving such a nice speech about me. Well, even though I don't remember anything, he shrugged his shoulders and then saw a small boy hiding behind Shayna, looking at him with the same eyes that the Crimson Mao did. Seeing that the blonde had seen him, the crimson-haired boy stepped out from behind Shayna and asked politely with his head bowed slightly. Are you really Naruto Uzumaki? Why yes, and you? He kneed down to the child's level and smiled at him. I'm Milika's Grimoire. The boy's eyes then shone brightly in excitement. Kaz-sama told me everything about you, your different journeys are all my favorite. He pulled out a paper and a pen. Can I have your signature? Please, my friends were all talking about you, I want to show them that I really met you in person. The boy asked with a hopeful tone. Oh sure thing, Red. Naruto smiled and took the paper. He had never done this before but managed to create his own signature. Here you go, the child squealed out in delight as Naruto patted his head while grinning. Shayna bit her lower lip and tried to hold back her tears. She felt terrible, disgusted at herself. Milika's loved Naruto and she used to tell him bedtime stories about his journey, despite the laws she had created herself about his existence. Now, looking at the heartwarming scene in front of her, Shayna couldn't control her feelings at all. Milika's had been a huge fan of Naruto, not knowing the man in front of him was his own father. She wanted to tell them the truth, she wanted to tell Milika's that Naruto was his father and to Naruto, the boy he was patting on the head was his son. However, she had to stop herself. Their marriage wasn't exactly official 10 years ago, and having Milika's was a secret between them, her parents, Seraphal, Ijuka, and Rias. Even their romantic feelings for each other was a secret. It was hard being a Mao. From the beginning the higher-ups, especially the elders, didn't exactly like Naruto as they were afraid of his power. Now, he had become weaker, and if they found out Milika's was indeed his son before he got his memories back, she didn't want to think what they would demand from her son, knowing he was the son of two of the most powerful beings in the world. She had to be patient, slowly helping him regain his memories, and only then could their family be reunited. Kaz-sama, look, it's Naruto Uzumaki ni-sama's signature. Shayna smiled warmly at her son. You should show it to your friends Milika's, Shayna said, making her son nod his head rapidly before running off to find his friends. You're getting popular, Naruto-kun, Shayna smiled at her secret lover. I guess, Naruto scratched the back of his neck, smiling nervously. Well, get used to it, sensei, Ijuka smiled. You won't believe how popular you have become in just a day. Care to enlighten me? Naruto asked. I think I can tell you that Naruto-sama. Lord Grimoire appeared with his wife next to him. Naruto-kun, this is my father and the head of Grimoire household, Rias introduced the crimson-haired man. And this is my mother, Venelana Grimoire. Pleasure to meet you too. Naruto grinned and shook Lord Grimoire's hand before turning to Venelana. Welcome back, Naruto-sama, Venelana bowed before looking at him. It's been more than 200 years and yet I feel like just yesterday I asked you to take care of Shayna. I'm not good at babysitting, he casted his eyes to the crimson-haired Mao. But looking at her right now I guess I had done a really good job, don't you think so? Shayna blushed while Rias giggled. So what's this about me becoming popular? He knew that he had become popular thanks to his revelation about being the author of Ika series, but he guessed it wasn't the only reason. I guess this matter involves Grafia as well. Venelana said, and everyone turned their eyes toward the silver-haired maid who had been standing behind Shayna this whole time. Oh hey maid-san, Naruto grinned brightly, too bright for Grafia's liking. I still haven't thanked you for giving me that summoning paper yet, so thank you. It's nothing Naruto-san, she said sternly. Damn, so cold, Naruto muttered, making everyone around them chuckle. Oh come on Grafia, Shayna said as she gently pulled the maid's braid. Stop with the san suffix, just call him the way you want, Shayna said with her usual cheerful expression. Grafia-chan, drop the cold face already, Serafal giggled as she hugged the maid tightly, whose face by now was red with embarrassment. I think I got a job to do. She tried to walk away, but both females now stopped her. Oi, I don't think you can escape, Ansama, Beowulf, who was eating with his fellow Shayna's peerage at the nearby table, called out. I'm still standing right here, Naruto pointed to himself, feeling a little left out from their conversation, which most likely involved him as well. He's the main character after all, right? We will have to wait later Naruto-sama because there are too many devils wanting to meet you. For now, just enjoy the party, Lord Grimori said as more and more families circled around Naruto and Rias, which the latter happily welcomed while the former groaned in disappointment. So, what's this all about? Naruto asked as the Grimori household was the last of the devils at the hall. The party had ended and all the other families had returned home. Only the Mao, sans the lazier one who had excused himself to go home and sleep, remained. Shayna's peerage wanted to stay because they wanted to see the hilarious scene that would play out. Rias' peerage were staying as well, with Issei reading a certain porn novel while giggling perversely. Grafia was standing behind Shayna with her usual stoic expression, though her hand was fingering her apron in a very nervous way, making it a kind of funny sight to see. Shayna, however, was holding a camera in her hand, preparing to catch the most embarrassing state of the usual stern and stoic maid, using it as blackmail in the future. You're awfully enjoying this, aren't you? Naruto, who was standing with his back leaned against the chair, said with amusement. You have no idea how many years I have waited for this moment, Shayna giggled and took a picture of Grafia. I'm going to use this against her in the future, to make her loosen up with me a bit. Strict. Very. Naruto nodded, not that surprised. Okay. Let's get to the main point, Naruto said, earning everyone's attention. I know that I fought in a war and was some kind of hero to you guys, but I don't think it would make me that popular. I mean, the boys and girls were all looking at me like they were looking at their role model, in a different way, he finished. Naruto-sama, first you have to understand that fighting in the Great War, taking care of Shayna, and then training 3 out of 4 Yandai Maos made you quite the celebrity. Serafal cheered out, giving him the V sign and her tongue sticking out cutely. However, it wasn't the only thing you did. Don't tell me it had something to do with Grafia. It directly involves her, Lord Grimori said before looking around, fixing his eyes on the young devils. You all read Love and War, right? Yes, Otu, Sa, Ma. Rias nodded her head before trailing off. Her eyes then widened as she looked at Naruto in shock. You're. What's with the look? Naruto asked, confused. Rias-chan, please go to your room and bring the book back to us. Shayna smiled sweetly. For some reason Naruto could see that the Mao wasn't pleased about the topic they were talking about. I could. Grafia raised her hand, but Serafal suddenly snaked her hands around the maid's neck, stopping her. Oh no, you better stay here, Grafia-chan. We can't have the main female antagonist run away, can we? Serafal giggled happily. Antagonist? She evil or something? Naruto asked before a tick mark appeared on his forehead. Can anyone tell me what's going on? I love to live in the shadows, away from the trouble, but you guys are making me very confused here. Come on, I'm a guy who lost 300 years worth of memory. Rias, Venelana addressed her youngest daughter, who was still glaring at Naruto, with a stern voice. All right, mother. Throwing Naruto one last look, the Crimson Heiress of Grimori clan quickly exited the room and head toward her room to find said book. So, please start the story, Naruto motioned his hand to the parents. All right, Naruto-sama, Lord Grimori cleared his voice before starting. Thousands of years ago, there were the 3 factions. Unlike other supernatural groups, which were apparently more or less independent of each other, these three were all interconnected. Together, the three factions spawned the Judeo-Christian religion, and became part of the Bible. The three factions of angels, devils, and fallen angels warred against one another under the leaderships of the biblical God, the four great Satans, and the fallen angel organization, Grigori, led by Azazel, in a conflict which came to be known as the Great War. And they happened right under my nose without me knowing. Naruto massaged his eyes. What about? The door opened. Once again Rias returned to the door with a pink book in her hand. For some reason, he felt like Graphia wanted to burn that book. Here it is, Otu-sama. Rias handed her father the book, then walked toward Naruto after giving Graphia with a glare. Thank you, Rias, Lord Grimoire smiled. Right, what about me? Did I try to stop the war? Knowing himself, Naruto probably stayed out of the way first. Unfortunately, quite the opposite. You avoided us for 300 years, bullseye, just like you said back then, stayed out of the trouble and lived a happy life alone. A happy life alone. Rias punched his arm lightly. What are you thinking? Well, Rias-chan, when you're an immortal wanderer like me, you will understand. Naruto shook his head sadly. I couldn't get close to anyone. Because I'm immortal, I will live forever while the person I care about will eventually pass away when their time came. I separated myself from the world, cutting all connections, and tried to live alone. You're not alone, Naruto-kun, Shayna suddenly said with a soft tone. It was just her instinct, but she wanted to say that to him, the same words she said to him when she was just a teenager being guided by Naruto. Why, thank you. Naruto smiled at her. Thousands of years alone, I'm surprised you haven't turned insane. I did, for more than 100 years, Naruto sighed, making everyone gasp, even Shayna, who thought she knew everything about him. But it's the past, please go on, Grimoire-san. Yes, Naruto-sama, like I said, it took us 300 years to locate you and convince you to come with us, the anti-Mao faction. Because of the devil's extremely long lifespan, you decided to stick around with us, and we became great friends with each other. You had very close ties with the Grimoire family as well as my wife's clan, the Bale clan. When we got married and I birthed Shayna, Venelana continued her husband's words. We asked you to take care of her whenever we were busy with our work, which you refused before we could finish. There were a few chuckles while Shayna pouted. But after some time you decided to take care of Shayna, and then your existence became acknowledged by the devil faction. When Seraphal Citri and Ajuka Astaroth became Shayna's friends, I took them under my wings and trained them. Naruto nodded. A basic team. The great magical team, hooray! Seraphal cheered out while throwing herself at Naruto, hugging him tightly, which the blonde didn't mind at all. Seraphal, our name was Team Maelstrom, Ajuka reminded her, making Naruto smirk. Team Maelstrom. Just what he wanted. You basically put the three of them through hell, Venelana said blankly. But with your training they became very powerful even at a young age, incredibly powerful. However, all three joined our army very soon because they wanted to stop the war as quickly as they could. With their power, ambitions, talents, the three, along with Falbium-sama, became the leader of anti-Mao faction, with Shayna as our ace. We attacked the old Mao faction because we thought that if we defeated them and made a truce with the other sides, we could stop the war and finally live in peace. However, the old Mao faction wasn't weak either, Shayna said. While their main army headed toward the battlefield against the angels and fallen angels, they had a lot of powerful servants to oppose us, and the one who stood at the front line, the old Mao faction's ultimate ace, who is now known as the strongest queen of the underworld and the silver-haired queen of annihilation. No way. Naruto turned his head to Graphia so fast that he could hear his bone cracking, but he didn't care. The silver-haired maid was looking at him with the usual expression, but he could also see something else in her eyes. Graphia was originally from the old Mao faction. She came from the House of Lucifuge, a family of pure-blooded devils from the extra demons whose family served under the original Lucifer. This time, it was Rias who spoke up. Why do I have feeling that I'm the reason she decided to change sides? Whenever he talked with an enemy, as Sasuke once told him, he always had this mysterious power to change people's mind and guided them to the good side. That was a great power because Naruto wasn't one who enjoyed fighting if it was not necessary. Also, bringing the evil ones to the bright side of life is better than killing them. Gaara was a perfect example at that. Team Maelstrom was powerful but inexperienced, while Graphia already fought countless battles for the anti-Mao faction. Ijuka chuckled. Sensei, you said you would sit down and watch the war and promised to never interfere, but there was something you couldn't stand. It was us, the ones you cared about, being beaten around by the enemies. I heard that it was the first time you had ever broken a promise, just to save Shayna and us. That's when your power being acknowledged by the anti-Mao faction, and guess who had been assigned to kill you at all costs? Venelana smiled. Damn, I'm dead meat. Naruto couldn't help but laugh. Being hunted around by a sexy silver-haired demon seemed like a really interesting experience. So, did we have a great time, Graphia? He teased, but before he could even blink, Graphia had appeared in front of him and kneed him in the stomach hard. Coughing in pain, Naruto just reacted in time to stop an ice blade aimed to his neck at the left side by grabbing Graphia's hand and wrist. However, it wasn't the last of Graphia's lightning-quick attack, as she used the grip Naruto had on her and threw him across the room. We did have a great time, Naruto-sama, Graphia said with her usual cold voice when she felt a cold blade at her neck. The Naruto being thrown into the wall disappeared in a puff of smoke. With you trying to kill me every time we met. Every time. This time, it was Shayna who spoke up. While feeling rather jealous at her maid, she couldn't help but find it very amusing. Naruto removed the kunai and made it disappear, letting Graphia returning to her usual spot behind Shayna. The maid was strong, insanely strong. She could kill him easily with those moves. The maid wasn't only fast, which already surpassed the speed of A, she was also very strong. She had summoned a weapon, or whatever she had done, before his eyes could follow and get close to him without him knowing it. Sure, he had been slacking off lately, however Naruto was sure he was still around cage level, or at least cage level. Made him wonder how he had survived with her at his tail. You pranked her, as if she could read his mind, Shayna said, from using paint balloons to using ropes to tie her upside down the tree. Now, with Graphia tailing you like that, the anti-Mao faction lost an important ace and completely forgot about the rest of Team Maelstrom and Falbium, letting 4 of the most powerful devils in history roam around the battlefield and defeat their strongest servants. They gained experience with each battle they fought and became stronger than ever while Graphia was still chasing Naruto-sama around. Read page 999 Naruto-sama, and you will understand what happened between you and Graphia. Venelana handed Naruto the book, which Naruto opened to the exact number and read it. For a few minutes everyone remained silent, waiting for Naruto to read the story. Naruto could see that most details had been changed, but he could picture himself being the main character of this story while Graphia was almost the same as today, but she did have her emotional situation, just like how they met each other lately. Naruto widened his eyes when he finished the last page. I love you. Naruto looked up. That's some really strong words, Graphia, especially when I'm supposed to be the enemy. The maid turned her head to look away. How could I not? She suddenly said, dropping her cold image completely. At first I thought you were the greatest threat of my former master. I tried to kill you in the most horrible way you could imagine, and yet you still laughed it off, saying that it was fun hanging around with me. Time passed and I still tried to kill you, yet you remained the same and never tried to repay me, even showing kindness to me. I began to enjoy the time with you way too much, and then before I realized it, I was madly in love with you. Graphia took a deep breath before looking away, folding her arms under her breasts. It doesn't matter now, Naruto-sama. You still love me, it wasn't a question. Now Aniki, imagine something like this. Beowulf suddenly appeared beside Naruto and said cheerfully. A nameless devil, or fake name at this situation, fought at the front line of the anti-Mao faction in Graphia Lucifuge, the devil who fought against him from the front line of Old Mao faction. Their love story had become so popular that it became a well-known romantic story among the young devils, and was even made into movie. Naruto nearly dropped his mouth to the ground. Now, the world found out that the nameless devil was actually an immortal human, the hero of Great War, the one who trained and guided 3 out of 4 Udai Mao, Beowulf said dramatically. The one who killed the original Lucifer and stopped the war, and who also stole the heart of his most trusted servant. Well, Aniki, your reputation started this morning when the newest edition of your love story with Ansan was published. I'm sorry, Graphia lowered her head. Don't be. Wow, Naruto muttered. Always wanted to be in a movie, but I guess this is alright. So, that's it for now, Lord Grimori said. Let's return to our jobs everyone, the party is over. He then turned back to Naruto. Oh, if you need anything Naruto-sama, feel free to ask us. I will. Naruto nodded before being surrounded by Shayna's peerage, who still hadn't had the chance to greet him properly yet. While talking with the strongest peerage, Naruto couldn't help but kept glancing at Shayna and Graphia, who were chatting with each other at the far side of the room. Shayna always smiled around him, but unlike Graphia, it was a sad smile. Naruto smiled when he looked at the city below from the terrace of Grimori residence. For some reason, he felt like he was at home here. Maybe it was because of the experience he had during his lost past, or maybe it was because this devil's lifespan was longer, a promise to Naruto that he would never feel alone again. Thinking about the past Naruto-kun, he didn't need to turn around to find out who had arrived. Yeah, it's strange really, everyone knew me, yet I knew nothing about them. Only the older generation Naruto-kun. Shayna walked to the balcony and leaned her arms on them. But soon, the younger generation will know who you are, as well as Grigori in heaven. They will once again acknowledge your existence. I guess. Hey Shayna, how long is a normal devil lifespan? Depends Naruto-kun, the Phoenix family are all immortal while the normal devils could live up to 10 or hundreds of thousands of years. No one knows exactly how long. My grandparents are one of the first devils and they're still strong and happy. She turned her eyes to look at him, with concern. Don't worry, you can't get close to humans, but with devils like us, you will never be alone again. How's Graphia? She went back to her duties, pretending nothing has happened. They both laughed at that. But anyway, she will return to being Graphia Lucifuge, not the maid of Shayna Lucifer when she has a day off. Well, I really hope so. She's too strict if you ask me. Anyway Naruto-kun, what are you going to do from now? I don't know Shayna, maybe I will return to the human world, Shayna nodded. But I guess I will stick around here more often, with Rias there to remind me. Speaking of which, he really needed to speak with Rias about Asia's situation. Life was going to be interesting from now on. Thanks for your listening, I do hope you enjoy. If you guys enjoyed and you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications. And also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video, peace.